What do you want with a dead girl?
The Bride emerges as one of the most intriguing Gothic reimaginings in modern cinema, breathing new life into a story long associated with classic horror while boldly reshaping it for contemporary audiences. Rather than simply retelling a familiar tale, this film approaches its subject with ambition and stylistic intensity, transforming what was once a side character in a legendary monster myth into the emotional and philosophical center of her own narrative. The creative vision behind the project suggests a deep desire to explore autonomy, identity, and transformation through a lens that blends romance, horror, and darkly poetic drama. At its heart, The Bride is less about monstrous spectacle and more about existential awakening. The story revolves around a woman brought into existence through unnatural means, yet endowed with consciousness, emotion, and the capacity for choice. Instead of portraying her as a passive creation defined by others, the narrative focuses on her journey toward self-awareness. She awakens into a world that expects her to fulfill a predetermined role, yet her instincts push her toward independence and self-definition. This internal conflict fuels the emotional core of the film, transforming what could have been a straightforward horror premise into a layered character study. The setting embraces a heightened Gothic aesthetic, blending shadow-drenched architecture with bursts of theatrical color that mirror the protagonist's emotional state. The world feels both timeless and stylized, merging old-world romanticism with raw modern energy. Streets pulse with life, laboratories echo with moral ambiguity, and grand halls shimmer with the tension between elegance and decay. This visual contrast reflects the bride's own duality, both constructed and alive, both feared and fascinated, both object and subject. The narrative unfolds as a journey of discovery. Upon her awakening, the bride confronts the man who claims to have created her, a figure driven by obsession, ambition, and a belief that love can be engineered. His vision of companionship collides with her emerging selfhood. Rather than accepting her assigned destiny, she begins to question not only him but the entire structure of the world that surrounds her. These confrontations are charged with emotion, layered with philosophical questions about authorship, autonomy, and whether creation implies ownership. As she ventures beyond the confines of her origin, the bride encounters individuals who respond to her in vastly different ways. Some view her with awe, others with fear, and still others with opportunistic curiosity. Through these interactions, the film examines society's tendency to define those who are different before understanding them. Her physical presence becomes symbolic, not merely a marvel of science, but a mirror reflecting collective anxieties about control, gender, and transformation. Romantic tension threads its way through the narrative, yet it is far from conventional. The bride's relationship with her supposed partner is complex, oscillating between longing, resentment, and defiance. He sees her as completion. She sees him as limitation. Their dynamic underscores one of the film's central themes, that love without equality is merely possession. The emotional weight of their exchanges intensifies as she asserts her individuality, forcing him to confront the consequences of his ambition. Music and sound design contribute profoundly to the film's atmosphere. The score swells with operatic grandeur during moments of revelation, then retreats into minimalistic pulses when tension simmers beneath the surface. Silence plays an equally powerful role, particularly in scenes where the bride processes her surroundings, absorbing sensations and forming her own internal language. These quiet interludes allow viewers to inhabit her perspective, deepening empathy and connection. The film's tone balances Gothic romance with sharp, contemporary energy. While its roots lie in classic horror iconography, its execution feels urgent and modern. Dialogue crackles with wit and emotional intensity, refusing to treat its protagonist as a relic of the past. Instead, the bride speaks with clarity and conviction, articulating her desires and fears in ways that resonate with present-day conversations about identity and agency. Visually, the transformation sequences are both haunting and poetic. Rather than relying solely on spectacle, the film treats creation as intimate and unsettling. Flickering lights, trembling hands, and the subtle movement of breath signal the miracle and terror of animation. The moment she first opens her eyes is framed not as triumph but as ambiguity, a question mark hanging over existence itself. As the story progresses, the bride's journey becomes one of reclamation. She refuses to be defined solely by the circumstances of her birth. Instead, she seeks experiences that are wholly her own, moments of joy, sorrow, rebellion, and connection that shape her independent identity. This arc elevates the film beyond genre, positioning it as a meditation on what it means to live authentically in a world eager to categorize and confine. Thematically, The Bride engages with ideas of reinvention and second chances. Her existence challenges rigid notions of destiny, suggesting that even those shaped by others can reshape themselves. The narrative resists simplistic binaries of monster and human, instead presenting identity as fluid and evolving. In doing so, it reclaims the Gothic tradition not as static mythology but as living allegory. Midway through the film, tension escalates as societal forces close in. Fear of the unknown transforms into hostility, and whispers of curiosity give way to public spectacle. The bride becomes the focal point of fascination and outrage, a symbol manipulated by those seeking power or validation. These developments raise the stakes, shifting the narrative from intimate drama to broader confrontation, yet even in chaos, the story remains anchored in character. Her emotional evolution drives each turning point. Rather than reacting solely out of fear, she begins to act with intention, shaping her own path. This shift marks a pivotal transformation, from creation to creator of her own narrative. It is here that the film's feminist undertones crystallize, presenting autonomy not as rebellion for its own sake, but as necessity for survival. The climax approaches with a fusion of spectacle and introspection. Grand set pieces collide with personal reckonings, forcing characters to confront the truth of their motivations. The bride stands at the center, no longer uncertain but resolute. Whether through confrontation or quiet defiance, she asserts that her existence belongs to her alone. The resolution does not erase tragedy, but reframes it as catalyst for growth. Rather than delivering a neatly wrapped ending, the film embraces ambiguity. The bride's future remains open-ended, suggesting that identity is an ongoing process rather than a fixed state. This refusal to finalize her story mirrors the broader message of self-determination. That life cannot be scripted entirely by external forces. Audience anticipation surrounding The Bride stems from its bold reinterpretation of a beloved myth. Fans of Gothic horror are drawn to its atmospheric design and reverence for tradition, while new viewers are intrigued by its character-driven approach and contemporary themes. Conversations surrounding the film often highlight its emphasis on empowerment and its willingness to challenge conventional portrayals of femininity within horror. Production details emphasize a commitment to practical craftsmanship blended with stylized artistry. Costuming reflects both fragility and strength, evolving alongside the bride's emotional journey. Lighting choices underscore shifts in tone, bathing scenes in icy blues or fiery ambers depending on the narrative beat. Every design element reinforces the film's thematic focus on transformation. Ultimately, The Bride is not merely a horror revival, but a redefinition of perspective. It takes a figure historically defined by silence and gives her voice, depth, and agency. Through layered storytelling, evocative visuals, and emotionally charged performances, it transforms a Gothic icon into a symbol of resilience and self-creation. The film suggests that identity cannot be stitched together solely from expectation. It must be claimed, lived, and continuously reimagined. In its fusion of romance, horror, and philosophical reflection, The Bride invites audiences to reconsider what it means to be brought into the world without consent, yet choose one's own destiny. It honors the legacy of classic monster lore while carving a path distinctly its own, one where creation becomes empowerment, and the once silent bride steps forward as the architect of her own existence.